Hey, how are you doing? I'm Dr. David. Today I've got a really great guest with me today, Trip Maxwell. He's back for the third time, and we're going to be discussing how to utilize a macro dose or a therapeutic dose of magic mushrooms to totally reset your life. This could be perhaps the best episode I've ever done as far as psilocybin mushrooms. And of course, I normally discuss microdosing because that's what I've been doing for about 1 year now, but we're getting into the macrodosing realm right now, and I think you're really going to enjoy it. It's going to be very, very informative. Buckle in, get ready, and remember, this is not medical advice. Hey, Trip, welcome back. Thank you so much for your time. I know you've done a few videos with me already, and they've been really well received. So I appreciate this. I got a great question for you today, and I'm pretty confident you can help me with this one.
Sure.
Okay, so the question is, and I'll just make it kind of general, and you've probably been asked this a million times, so I think you'll know exactly how to handle it. Let's say there's somebody out there, and I've gotten a lot of requests for something like this. Somebody out there that has either been microdosing with magic mushrooms, or maybe they haven't even been microdosing, but they've got some things going on in their life from the past, and it's manifesting in all these crazy things like for example anxiety, depression, but they just can't shake these things from their past. And I know
Sure.
you've talked about a little bit, at least with me, about they need more than a microdose. So I'd like to start today, and let's just pretend, okay, let's pretend I'm one of those people. We'll just pretend, because I'll speak in the first person. I need more help. Trip, where do I start? What do I do?
Okay, so we got to understand a little bit about what's going on inside of you first, right? So you're microdosing, which you're getting these little quantities of psilocybin, and the psilocybin, what it does is it makes your brain make connections. All right, it's essentially it's like an induced form of meditation. It causes parts of your brain to activate, which gives you perception that you've never had before. All right. And what ends up happening is mushrooms have a tendency to bring out traumas or unresolved issues. If you were doing yoga, and I don't mean hatha, that's the one with spandex and everything. If you're doing like Kriya yoga or some of the other yogas, what ends up happening is you start getting flashbacks of things that happened, unresolved issues. It starts to purge its way out of your body. Mushrooms do the same thing, right? So what ends up happening is the mushroom, you're taking enough of it to draw these things to the surface to see them, but you're not taking enough of it to get it to wipe it clean. Now, before I go into that, I will tell you that mushrooms do an amazing job of helping you let go, but they don't actually wipe anything clean. The letting go actually comes from you. All right. So say I get a person and they're tired of living in a state of either depression or anxiety, and you've lived with it for years, right? And they want to get to the next level of just being able to be mentally clean and free, emotionally clean and free. Then it's time to do a large dose. Now, large doses are great, 2-3 grams, they'll do wonders. But what I've noticed and what other people are starting to verify that are taking my advice on this is what I call the threshold dose. The threshold dose is when you reach a certain level of psilocybin in your body where it crosses some threshold and everything changes on a permanent basis. Now, nobody really knows what their threshold is. My threshold was 7 grams of eaten mushrooms. Now, later on, I found out that you can actually, if you turn mushrooms into powder and you mix it with citric acid, it hits a lot harder. So you don't have to take as much. You can take 5 grams of powder and it hits like 7 grams of eaten mushrooms. But the thing is because nobody knows what their threshold is, you don't want to scare people off. So if like you take like 3 or 4 grams and you perceive that you've had a bad trip or you've had all of these negative emotions come up, it could scare you away from going even higher. So what I tell people is, since the threshold dose is a permanent thing, you can do a one and done. So you can take a threshold dose and you automatically go high. You're going for that 7 gram or 7 gram equivalent. So 5 grams of powder or 7 grams eaten mushrooms. You go high, you ride it out, you get done. You're not going to notice the change today, but you're going to notice it within a week or two. And that will get you to the point where what happens is your ego, the personality that you think you are inside of your own head, actually separates, and it doesn't stay that way, but it gives you a perspective that you are not the mind. And when it realizes this, it basically begins to see everything from the past as just a series of memories. And you begin to just let go. It's a natural phase. Now, it's not the end of the therapy. I mean, you still have to have good mental habits, positive thinking, redirecting your thoughts whenever your mind goes into a negative place. But it is definitely a Kickstarter for releasing trauma. And for people with years and years and years of bad things like abuse or whatever, it's usually going to be several large doses. And after, I don't know, six sessions or so, or what ends up happening is there's nothing left. Everything is just seen for what it is, which is just memories. And then you're left with this blank slate of, like, you're a lot more calmer. Somebody will say something that would normally irritate you, and you're just kind of like, wow, it didn't really bother me. It's kind of cool. So the threshold dose is definitely what I would aim for. And if you did it once and then you backed down to doing, like, say, 2 gram or 3 gram sessions, you'd never have to do a threshold again. But what's ironic is people that have had, like, some serious trauma, when they're doing these threshold doses, they're actually going back and doing them again and again and again, because they're seeing the effects of what it does. So they're not even messing around with the lower doses anymore.
First thought is, okay, 7 grams, scary.
Yeah.
Tell me what it's like, and how do you do it? Do you? I think for 7 grams, like, you need a trip sitter. Am I correct? And what do you do? What do you do during the trip?
It depends on you. Okay, so I'll break down the different phases, but yes, it depends on the person. Me, I didn't have anybody, right? So I basically just got it through my head. No matter what, I'm not going to run outside naked and do stupid crap. All right. I'm not going to call 911. I know I'm not going to die. You know, the mushroom will make you think it can kill you. Some people, not everybody goes through that, but it won't actually kill you. But it'll bring up all these fears. And one of the fears that'll happen is, oh my God, I'm going to be crazy for the rest of my life. I'm never coming out of this. No, that's not true. You'll actually come out of it like everybody else does. But what it's doing is it's feeding on your fear. All right. And a lot of people resist. They try and control the trip. And that's actually the worst thing you can do. So with a threshold dose, all you got to do is just kick back, let it do its thing, endure it, and get done with it. But so the come up, let's say you take 5 grams of powder, which is equivalent to 7 grams of eaten mushroom. I would actually go with the 5 grams of powder. It'll hit you harder, quicker, and it just seems like it does an overall better job. So you take the dose. I prefer using fruit smoothies made with orange juice as a base liquid. So I use frozen fruit, orange juice, then powdered mushrooms added in, and I take that. Um, don't think about it. Just drink it as quickly as you can. Because if you think about it, you might scare yourself out of it or only take part of it. So just take the whole thing. What you'll notice in about 15 to 30 minutes is you'll start to feel it kick in. You'll notice that, things might start to look a little wavy. Patterns start to move or shift. Your couch might look like it's starting to breathe. You know, and you might see you might start getting open eye visuals, and you're definitely going to get closed eye visuals. And honestly, closed eye visuals, for those of us who dive deep on a regular basis, that's where it's at. Go in a completely dark room, pull the covers over your head, and it's like high definition, like watching edge to edge vision TV. It's amazing. But you're going to come up. Then you're going to start feeling it kick in. Colors get brighter. Everything is great. You're like, wow, this is cool. Then you start going through the asshole phase. That's what I call the asshole phase. The asshole phase is where you begin to feel bad for people that you may have been mean to. They'll call their mom, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to treat you that way when I was growing up. They'll do stuff like that, I would say stay away from the telephone because you'll start trip texting people. Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
okay, Trip, let me just interrupt. And you're on a roll, so I don't want to interrupt, but I've got a question. During this trip, can you? I always pictured it as you can't function. You're just laying down in a dark room, and whatever happens, happens. Can you actually function? Like if you wanted to make a phone call, I'm not saying you should, but if you wanted to make a phone call, could you? If you wanted to
Yes.
walk around the block, could you do
Yes.
it?
Yes. Now, depending on the person, depending on how sensitive they are to the psilocybin, they may actually have more like an inebriated effect. Your cell phone screen is going to start looking like a rainbow shimmer, and it's going to be hard to actually function, especially a touchscreen phone. But let's say you're able to call somebody. Yes, you could talk to them, and the weird thing is you're like, oh my god, I'm unintelligent and I can't speak straight, and everybody else can understand exactly what you're saying, which sounds makes you sound even crazier when you do that. um but no, yes, you can walk around, you can move. There's a lot of people that go into the woods, or they'll go to concerts, or they'll go to different things, and they'll take mushrooms and do that. But there are a few people who become completely body heavy, where all they can do is just lay down and do nothing else. And I've experienced that. There are certain mushrooms, depending on the grower, the nutrients that they used, all sorts of different factors. You could have one that has a very heavy body feel to it, and those are the ones where people feel like they become paralyzed. A lot of the paralyzation stories that people hear are actually from what's called wood loving mushrooms. So the majority of magic mushrooms that people take are called psilocybe cubensis. Wood loving mushrooms are mushrooms that grow off of dead wood. And there is a weird phenomenon with some of the wood loving where they get like what they call like mushroom paralysis or wood loving paralysis. But that's I've never had wood loving mushrooms. I can't I can't imagine. I mean, wood loving mushrooms are up to 3 times more potent than regular mushrooms. So I'm sure if you took a normal size dose for cubensis and you're getting 3 times that amount, you're probably not able to move simply because you're on a hell of a lot of psilocybin. So it'd be like taking 15 grams. So yeah.
Okay, because I of course I know people use these for to party and to go to concerts, but I never assumed that somebody at a concert would be on 7 grams because it seems to me that you wouldn't be able to function. But I could be totally wrong.
Oh, I can function just fine. See, the thing is, it's the mind that creates the stories. And when people get locked into their minds is when they're sitting on the couch and they can't do anything. Me, I can take them, and if I need to come back to reality in order to be able to deal with something, I can pull myself back. Um, I'm still tripping, but it's like if you drink like a 6 pack and you're buzzing really hard, you can still function. You can still go to the bathroom or whatever, you know. But so that's most people get stuck in their own heads though. They're imagining this stuff happening. Your mind sucks you into this dramatic story that it's telling, where it's making you relive the past, and they don't have the ability to pull themselves back far enough to be able to say, okay, I need to get up and get something to drink or this or that. I can go in and out as at will.
Okay, that's great clarification there. And I understand that because let's say for some reason and I'm giving personal example. I use cannabis and I use like let's say I use a decent amount of it. If I
Sure.
need to pull myself out of it for a little bit, I certainly can. So it's probably I'm assuming probably kind of similar.
Yeah, and that once again, it depends on strains. Like I said, most people are using cubensis. Now, I will say that what I'm seeing a lot of are these mutants. People are using what they call ape or albino penis envy.
Hmm.
Was a mutant that was more potent. I can't remember how much more potent, but what they've done is they've isolated it to a point where they have like second and third generation mutants that are hitting like twice as hard. I took 5 grams of powder of this stuff called tidal wave, and it's called tidal wave for a reason. And it wave after wave after wave, and it hits you like each wave was just heavy, heavy. It was like taking 10 grams of eating mushrooms. It was double the psilocybin effect. It was amazing, strong, but amazing.
Right.
You know,
Right. So okay, so you've covered the come up, you've started to cover like as you're in your trip.
at the come up,
Yeah.
you've got the asshole phase, and then what happens is you actually enter into the main trip, and this is going to be your spirit quest kind of crap. This is going to be where you're inside of your own head, and it's going to focus on whatever it thinks it needs to fix inside of you. Okay, whatever it needs. I've had mushrooms tear me down, and I've had them build me back up too. So whatever you need, it's going to work on it. If you try and control the trip, it will punish you for it. I don't know how, but think about mushrooms like a sentient, intelligent being because they do not function like anything else. All right. Um, so just let it do whatever it's going to do. You don't have to understand it. You don't have to get it, right? For people who are taking a threshold dose for the first time, um, if they've never done any real tripping before, it's going to be like a cosmic funhouse of mirrors, right? It's the only way I can think about it. You're not going to have anything that your mind can relate to, so it's just going to be like off the wall, and you're not going to understand it, and that's okay. I had a lady that she did a she did a threshold dose, and she came back. She said, "I didn't learn anything from that. I didn't even understand what I was looking at." So I talked to her, asked her questions, and come to find out she had ego death. She had universal love and understanding and compassion, like for everybody. Like she had all of these major experiences, but she didn't know what she was looking at. So, everybody always wants to compare what they're looking at with the stories that they hear, and it never works like that. Don't worry about comparing your experience to anybody else's. So you're going through this phase. This phase will last you about 2 hours. It's pre-peak, the peak, and then after peak. Once you have about 2 hours of that, and this is where most of if you have anything that you have to work through, this is where you're going to do your crying and whatnot. After that, let's go. Like it's the strangest damn thing. It's like, it feels like you're being squeezed to death by an anaconda, and then all of a sudden it just lets go. And you're still tripping, but it's let go. And this is the come down phase. And the come down phase is the perfect time to listen to music, watch movies or videos that you like or whatever. It's the perfect time for that. So I usually plan to do a movie the last 2 hours. I'll get a movie I really like or want to see. It's like stuff like the Johnny Depp, Alice in Wonderland stuff is like really colorful. So, but I've done it so many times that I don't really like. I don't have any demons left, so there's nothing for it to really mess me up with.
So is there like an assignment while you're at the main phase of the trip, is there something you need to be doing, thinking about, taking notes,
Sure.
journaling, or do you just let the mushrooms do their stuff and don't even worry about anything?
Don't worry about anything. Don't try and control anything. The harder you resist, the harder you try and control the situation. It'll let you know. It'll let you know very quickly. And you'll hear the same thing over and over and over again. People will be like, "Man, I was having a hell of a time, and then I just gave up." And all of a sudden, you let go. It's like, "Yep, that's exactly what happens." So, and you know what? There's going to be a level of resistance. The mind does not like the idea of being out of control. It doesn't like the idea that it's not controlling anything. So there will be resistance. It's going to happen. But you'll see what I'm saying. It'll happen to you. It'll happen. It happens to everybody, at least in the beginning. So
Okay, so then once you say finish your come down phase and you've watched your move, you're watching your move. By the way, do you know when you're in the come down phase? How can you really tell, like, okay, this is the beginning of the come down? How do you know?
Because what happens is your mind lets go of whatever it was chewing on. So if your mind it was making you think about stuff from the past, or if your mind was, making you afraid of whatever it's trying to make you not afraid of, then all of a sudden it just lets go, and you'll be coming down. It won't be as intense, and um, it's kind of like when you cry to the point where there's no tears left. That's kind of what it's like. You're just at that moment, in that stage, in that therapy session, you're done. You'll know. For those who are sensitive enough to it, the mushrooms almost talk to you. They almost let you know. Everybody I've ever known that's taken a threshold dose all say the same thing. They're like, yeah, it's like, okay, you've had enough. And it's like, who's saying that? That's not my voice. Yeah, yeah. It's it's real. I mean, that's what I'm saying. It's not like anything else I've ever taken. I've taken acid before, or LSD, and it feels very mechanical. It feels like it's just a forced trip, where mushrooms actually feel like they have a spirit to them that talks to you. And if if you're actually listening and you're not trying to control the situation, it'll tell you.
It sounds amazing.
Once you've been accepted into the mushroom tribe, I don't know, whatever you want to call it. Once you've been accepted into it, and once you get through all your traumas and whatnot, like for me, my mushroom trips have nothing to do with fixing me anymore. It has nothing to do with it. There's nothing left for me to fix. I've accepted everything in life. I've moved on. So now all of my trips are mystical. Like, and it's weird. It is like somebody just completely changed the channel on you. It's like, you thought you knew tripping before? Nope. Now it's like, hey, let me show you some really cool stuff. So
And how often do you take these mystical trips now? Would you say roughly how often?
um I don't I don't do them that often anymore. I'm on an average of about every 6 months now. And it's usually because somebody else is tripping or wants to take a threshold dose. And I will trip with them because it's the only way that I can be in the same headspace as them. It's the only way I can understand them. It's the only way that they'll understand me. And there's a really weird phenomenon that happens with mushrooms, is that two people tripping together, sometimes their minds almost like sync up, like you can almost understand what they're thinking. So by me being in a trip with them, um whenever they start to experience things, I know how to guide and direct it. It's really weird.
I've heard that before too. That's super interesting. So, okay, let's say the trip ends, it's over, done. Um,
Yeah.
then you said like the first day or two, you're not going to really notice any difference, but you said after about a week or so, you will notice a difference. What do you actually notice? And do you have to do anything between the trip and then, like journaling or things like that, or does it just happen?
You know what? You'll find that journaling kind of goes by the wayside. You'll just realize it's not necessary. Like, it's just like you'll go to grab a book or whatever, and you're like, I want to write this down. And you're like, nah, just let that go. And it's the weirdest thing. So what happens after trip? There's a couple of different common responses. There are sometimes some uncommon responses, but some of the most common responses are, um, you come out of your trip and you feel that life is amazing. You learned all sorts of mystical stuff, and you learned a lot about yourself, and you're really grateful for it, no matter how terrible it seemed when you're in it. Then there's some people that come out of it and they feel like they were beaten down, and they feel really low. That one's not as common, right? And then what happens is these effects that you begin to notice later are, you don't really let things bother you anymore, or it doesn't seem like they bother you as much. You like somebody will say something to you, and it's just kind of like, oh well, damn, I would have been angry about that before, but I just don't really care, right? Same thing with your memories. Your memories, you're like, well, okay, that happened, can't do anything about it now, move on, right? So it's almost like it cuts the threads to your memories. You still see them, but it's not affecting you the same way. And then one of the things that happens is you become highly allergic to bullshit. So people would just, you don't realize how many people around you are negative or toxic until after you have one of these threshold doses. And then all of a sudden you're like, why are you telling me this stuff? Why are you like this? Why are you, I can't be around you anymore, and you kind of start avoiding people that bring negativity into your life. You become very allergic to drama. So these are the most common ones that happen. And this is universal. I've never seen anybody that did not experience this. In fact, I found that some people even recognized the drama inside of themselves and started knocking off their own nonsense. So,
Very interesting. Trip, who needs this? In other words, how do you, if somebody's watching this video that you and I are discussing, how do you determine whether this is for me or maybe this is not for me?
well, I think every politician in the world needs to be force fed about 10 grams. I'm kidding. Um, not kidding, but kidding. Um, but how do you know if it's for you? It's very simple. I'll tell you this. If you're sick and tired of feeling bad and you can't figure out a way out of it, and you are, you don't have psychosis, or you're not on SSRIs, right? You don't want to be on certain medications. But, if you are willing, if you are even willing to contemplate going through what is considered a bad trip, then you're ready. Because what that means is that you've lived a life of hell. What's another 8 hours? So,
How about if you're not sure?
what's that?
How about if you're not sure? Somebody like me. Okay, I'm going to use myself as an example. I've been microdosing for, as we speak now, for just about a year. It's worked really, really well. I know that you mentioned to me a short time ago that you can see some things maybe with my eyes or body language that maybe I need more. I'd like to know a little more about that too. But I'm kind of on the edge. Like I think if I didn't ever do like a threshold dose that you're describing, I think I'd be totally fine, because I feel from the microdosing for a year, I feel trips so much better than I felt in the past decades, many
Okay.
decades. But again, like I said, the reason I want to do this video with you is because I might be able to use more, and I'd like to know about that.
So one of the things that I did notice about some of the people that are reporting back to me, that are taking these special doses, is that people who used to microdose are not microdosing. So right now you are relying on the medicine to do the work for you and to function. And once you get past a certain point, there's no need for it. So, and it's just, microdosing is kind of like a band-aid. It doesn't fix the
Mm.
problem. It just allows you to coast, you know.
Very, very interesting. No, I can totally relate to that. Totally, that's very interesting. Um, okay, well, I think you kind of walked me through, who needs it, who's it going to work for, how do you do it, what happens after you do it. Is there anything else you want to include that maybe we didn't touch on? Because I think I got a pretty full picture right now.
Obviously, the basic things that you need to know are, if you're on SSRIs or other kinds of modifying medications, you need to be clean of those before you do it, because you don't want to get serotonin syndrome, which can kill you, right? So people on SSRIs are people who'd have to worry about that. You have to let yourself know, you know, if you're good with doing it solo, just remember, don't go running outside naked. Don't yell, scream, holler. Don't call 911. You're not going to die, no matter how much it convinces you it'll kill you, right? You will not be crazy forever, I promise, right? And you just roll with it. Um, as far as methods for taking it, some people say, oh, lemon tech is best, or this or that. Lemon tech was great tech when it first came out. We've evolved way past that. I would suggest taking it in the form of a fruit smoothie using orange juice as a base. It's a hell of a lot tastier, not as nasty as lemon tech. It doesn't make you gag. Some people love lemon tech. I can't stand it. I would suggest using a tablespoon of ginger paste. You can buy it in a tube where they sell fresh herbs at the grocery store. Take about a tablespoon of that before you take the thing. It'll calm your stomach down. Last time I did that, I didn't have any nausea or nausea waves at all. In fact, I didn't even have any stomach issues the next day. Sometimes, depending on the mushroom, you might have some stomach issues the next day. But and just if you think you need it, you probably need it. If you're on the fence about it, just do it, right? Just get it done with. And but just make sure that you are not on any medications. You don't have any verified psychosis. There are rare cases where people with some kinds of psychosis can cause more damage, but I would say that most people don't have true psychosis. They've just never learned how to deal with their issues in life. So, and that's where we get anxiety and depression.
Super, super helpful Trip. Very interesting. And again, I thank you for taking your time and doing this little interview meeting with me. It's really helpful, not only for me, but I think for the many people that are going to be watching this. So I always appreciate hanging out with you. You want to do it again sometime?
Yeah, man, let's do it.
Fantastic. Thanks a lot, Trip. We'll talk to you real soon. Okay.
All right, cool.